Hello, my name is Tina Terry, and I welcome you to the Gig Sessions Fanfare Fridays, where we hope to ask the questions you want to know about each one of our musically talented guests. Please know at the end of the session, we will pick one question from you, our viewers, to present to our guests. So if there is something you want to ask, now is your moment. Please put a Q in front of your question so it can be easily found. And just to be clear, we will only be able to pick one live question, so make it good. Now, let's get on with the show. Straight from San Diego, California, Fanfare Fridays presents Miss Whitney Shay. She's a future blues icon, as quoted in Blues Music Magazine. One of the next best things in soul music, as quoted in Blues and Rhythm Magazine, and Elmore Magazine takes it higher by calling her the epitome of a rising star. There are many facets to this lady, and I hope we can show them all to you in this interview. Welcome, Whitney, to your Fanfare Friday session.
Good morning. Thank you for the wonderful introduction.
It's well meant, and I like the new hair. This looks great.
Thank you. It's getting really long. Quarantine
It really
hair,
is. Quarantine hair. I love it. I love it.
Tina,
So
can you believe we met a year ago in Germany? It's been a year now. Can you believe that?
You are correct, because I think this was about the day I was making the long trip for 48 hours. My 48-hour haunt to Germany pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if you know this, but the day we came home was the day that Germany found their first 14 cases.
Wow, I did not know that. Oh my goodness.
So these people were flying in as we were flying out.
Wow.
I know.
We got back just in time.
I know. To sit and wait.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've got some questions for you. You ready?
Okay. I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay. I'm going to start out by having some fun first.
Okay.
Okay. What would be the song you would want to play for a first date?
Oh, like on the date? Oh.
On the way home? Maybe he knows, maybe he doesn't.
Ooh.
And let's preference that by saying a first date you enjoy.
Okay. Oh, that's good. That's good. I would probably say, as far as like love songs, I always go to Edda because Edda's my girl. I know that like my favorite love song is A Sunday Kind of Love. So I would just say that one probably because that's like I know my like wedding dance song someday, you know. So we'll say that one. Yeah.
I like that. So which do you prefer? Cocoa pies or s'mores?
Oh, I would say s'mores. I don't think I know what. So I've had this question asked for me before, but I don't think I know what cocoa pies are. That might be a Southern thing.
I had to look it up, and when I looked it up, I have seen them, and I think you're right. I think it's a very Alabama, Mississippi, because we don't have those in this side of the South.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what that is, but I like s'mores, you know. I'm cool with those.
Me too. I keep a s'mores basket, graham crackers, marshmallows, and I keep it in my kitchen. So whenever I can get outside to the fire pit, that's what I take with me.
I'm coming to your house. That sounds great.
Invited anytime.
Yeah.
So is it okay or not okay for a man to walk around in public without a shirt on?
I don't have a problem with it. I'm all for body positivity, you know? I think that if you feel good about yourself, you can rock what you want, you know? That being said, you know, sometimes people make questionable choices, and you know what? Like I said, I'm fully in support of people rocking their self-confidence. So, good for them.
So what was your worst dating experience, if you care to or can share?
Oh goodness. I would probably say years ago, the joys of online dating. So years ago, I had gone out on a couple dates with a guy. I had just moved into my new place, and we were going to go out. And we were going to go like have dinner, go do something. And I just moved that day. And I said, you know what? I'm just exhausted. Like, I really think, let's reschedule. And he said, okay, how about I come over, with a movie? Like, we watched some Netflix, and like, I'll bring some ice cream. And I said, that sounds great. That sounds lovely. Like something low key. So he showed up. He got dropped off at my house, first of all, which I was like, and he showed up and he was drunk. And
Ooh.
yeah, and then this actually ties back to your last question. So we came in the house. I went to the restroom. I come out, and he had taken his shirt off and was walking around. That's funny that you asked that question. He's walking around, and my roommate was like in the kitchen. And he's walking around without his shirt on, and just like immediately when he walks in the house, I'm like, oh my God. So then we go upstairs to my room, and I'm just like feeling really like uncomfortable. And I just said, you know what? Like, maybe you should go, because I'm feeling very mellow. I think you're like really into like raging tonight. And I just moved all day. Like, I'm really not in the mood for this. And then he proceeded to start crying.
Oh no.
And I know, Tina, I know. And so then he cried, and I'm like, oh my God, I feel horrible. So I went to shower, and I said, and this is before Uber. This is years ago. So he was like, oh, I'm just going to like walk home. And he lived about 20 minutes drive from me. So I was like, you're not going to walk. Like, I'll just take you or something. And then he was like making a big deal about, I don't know, getting a taxi and how expensive it was going to be or whatever. So I came out of the shower, and he like slammed the door and left, and then like walked where his friends were. Apparently his friends were like just up the street, which that was unbeknownst to me this whole time. So luckily, needless to say, that was the probably third or fourth date I'd been on with him, but the last time I went out with that person. So there you go. That's a good bad dating story.
And so it's funny because I kind of thought you would follow where these questions came from. So now I'm gonna tell the fans that these were pre-made questions that I stole from a 2015 short film that you did called The Deadliest Date.
And that's so funny, because I thought that Choco Pies and S'mores, I was like, that has to be from that film, because I've never heard those referred. That's so
And
funny.
for those of you who don't know, it was a quirky little film that took on, like, it was a game show, and it was done in like this video game fight club context. And the prize was to win a date with you, Whitney. So I see that you were a lead in two other films that were directed by Steven Anson. One of those was a 2008 film called Does the Noise in My Head Bother You? Which I think is interesting that is the title to Steven Tyler's memoirs that he published in 2012.
Oh,
And
interesting.
isn't that interesting? And then the other one was Steven's 2009 film, Quinlan. Was acting something you were pursuing, or did this happen unexpectedly?
So actually, I started out acting. I started when I was 3 years old. I started. It's a story my mom and my grandmother have told me a lot of times. But we went to Europe. It was my first time. Until I didn't go again until I was an adult a few years ago. But my first time in Europe, and I used to sit through plays as a kid. And we went and watched The Wizard of Oz, which was my favorite movie when I was a kid. And after the show, my mom and my grandmother asked me, so what did you think of the play? And I said, well, I liked it, but I thought I was going to get to be on stage. And my mom didn't know where that came from. She was like, what? So we came back, and I was 3.5, and she found a theater company that would take me. And so Annie was my first production. I was like the smallest orphan, and I had one line. And yeah, and I started, and I always loved performing and being on stage. And I went to a performing arts school for part of elementary school. I was in, know that you're from the South, so you know what FFA is, right?
I
I
do.
knew you.
They
I
get
was
to
in
drive their
FFA.
tractors to school.
I drove a tractor. I had a hayfield in high school, Tina. Be impressed, multifaceted over here. But I was in FFA, and I would always sang in musical theater in school, and then in high school I was in the FFA state choir, and then I went on to the national convention in Louisville, Kentucky, and I even got solo in the national choir. I sang the respect solo, so even then I was singing soul music back in the day. Um, when I think I was 15, 14, something like that. And so yeah, so then I pursued theater in college, and I majored in theater in college, and it was just always something that I wanted to do. And then about 10, got almost 12 years ago now, I had moved to Denver with an ex for a couple months, and we had planned on going to New York and doing the whole Broadway thing. And then we came back. I came back. We broke up. I came back to San Diego, and I said, okay, well, what am I going to do now? And I decided to pursue music. I kind of went on Craigslist. I found some musicians. I started swing dancing at the same time. And then all of a sudden, I got into music. And so to me, it wasn't like necessarily like a shift of like, now I'm acting, now I'm singing. It was just more, I've always been a performer. I've always loved to be on stage. I've always loved to perform and entertain people. So now I get to do it in a different context. So.
Are you still pursuing acting opportunities?
Yeah, I am. I mean, with COVID, it's a little interesting, but actually, it's been really cool. The film "The Deadliest Date" that you're referring to, a good friend of mine from college, Fernando J. Huerto, who's an amazing director and he's a stunt performer. He's been for the last couple years working at Universal Studios and Knott's Berry Farm, and then he does a lot of production work on a lot of films. He worked on some pre-production work for the movie Get Out, and he's worked on a lot of series. So the last few months, him and I've done films with him over the years, off and on. He'll call me in, and that Deadliest Date film was really cool because it was a weekend. They call it the 48-hour film project. So they do it. We do everything in a weekend. So we write and
Oh,
produce
wow.
and film and edit the whole thing. You get all the prompts and everything Friday night, and you have to submit it by Sunday. So
Oh, wow.
it's even more incredible when you think about that. And the Deadliest Date actually is all one shot. If you go back and watch that, it's all one continuous shot with no cuts. So the fact that Fernando is the one who's fighting, he's the lead in the film as well. So he often stars and directs in the films. But I've been training with him, doing some stage combat work the last few months, which has been really fun. And we actually did some pre-production work for a TV show that's coming out, I think, in the next couple weeks. I got to do like a choking scene basically for the actors. So we got to kind of do the pre-production. So they send it to the actors, and then the actors know how to it's kind of a visual storyboard, so to speak. So did that, and then we filmed a film kind of I would say in the summer. That was another kind of combat piece. So I got to mix my love for acting and performing, and also kind of use some of those stage combat skills too. It was really fun.
And that explains why the fight scenes in that movie were so real-like.
Yes, he's an amazing fight choreographer and fighter. He's been doing it professionally for a long time, and it's really cool because he really is great at training women, and so he features a lot of women in his films, which is awesome. He's actually won some awards from the local film community for diversity in film because he has so many people of color and also women in his films, and especially to have women fighting, you don't see that too often. So it's pretty cool.
That is awesome. So you told me a funny analogy about cats and dogs with regards to relationships. It was so spot on and so true. And I think it's something the viewers would find humorous and knowledgeable. So on that note, do tell your relationship analogy with regards to these animals.
I wish I knew who told me this the other day because I've been thinking about this the last couple of weeks. I can't remember, but it's so true. So a friend of mine said the other day that cats and dogs are kind of the like the example of healthy versus unhealthy boundaries in a relationship. So cats are very independent and they're just like whole in themselves. And when they want affection and attention, they'll come to you, they'll get it. And then when they're done, they'll go away. But dogs, they just want to be around you and be in your space and be in your face all the time. And sometimes it's a little too much. And so it's kind of I feel like it's a very good analogy to healthy relationships. So there you go. There's your dating analogy advice for me today.
And I feel like it should be new hashtags as women we should be able to use
I think so
as we
too.
describe what's happening. So I feel like every woman needs to know that if it's working, it's a cat.
Yes,
if
I
it's
agree.
not working, he's a dog.
Good thing I'm a cat lover.
So what age were you when you first performed on stage, and what was that event? And I think you kind of answered that, but maybe the play wasn't your first time.
I think that was the first time. I mean, although my mom said I was always singing, like even when I was little. But yeah, I was in Annie and I was 3.5. I still have the t-shirt actually, believe it or not, and I could still fit in it. I don't know. It must have been huge. Um, from I won't say what year. But it was so I there's a scene in the play where Miss Hannigan, who's the the caretaker, everybody pretty much knows Annie, I think, but she goes down and all the orphans are supposed to say, I love you, Miss Hannigan. And I've seen this on video, this is how I know this. So they went down the line and I was the smallest orphan, and they kind of half knew I was going to say this, but like kind of bribed me with a candy bar, because I would only say I love you to my mom. I was 3, at the time. But so then she gets to the end of the line. She says, well, kid, do you love me or not? And I said, no. And then we all ran off stage. So that was like my line, and everybody laughed. It was like a big laugh line. So it's my debut on the stage.
And at 3, you can't get fired for that cuteness.
No, I mean, I think they kind of knew I was going to do that. Like it was kind of planned, but they, when you get kids that little, you can't really, you don't know what they're going to do.
So everyone has a dream, and most times to make dreams come true, sacrifices have to be made. What sacrifices did you make to make music, and only music, your full-time job?
Yeah. I would say just like time. And I've realized, I think it's something that a lot of us have realized in the pandemic, time and like our relationships, not only like romantic relationships, but friendships. I think we realized how much before the pandemic, how much we worked. I mean, for me, in the last 10 years of my life, my focus has been solely my career. And that has been 100% what I've devoted my time and energy to. Now, I had time for friendships and relationships and stuff, but not really, I wasn't really always present. And that's something that I've definitely learned from the pandemic. And I'm very grateful for, is learning how to be fully present when I do have the time off and space. Because before, I would say, when I was out with friends or something, I was always on my phone. We're kind of all addicted to our phones, but I was always promoting something or doing something. I had to do this. I had to do this. I had to run here. I had 2 gigs. I mean, one year I did 300 gigs in a year. I think a couple of years in a row, I did 300 gigs in a year, which is kind of crazy to think that, like, having friendships and relationships and any kind of balance in your life is possible when you are working that much. So I would say, yeah, like I sacrificed a lot of just time and energy, which I don't regret. I mean, I'm very grateful for the time and energy that I invested in my career. And obviously when things go back, there's going to be, a little bit of a shift, but I will say I'm really grateful for this last year off, so to speak, because it's really taught me about balance and kind of learning gratitude for small things again. I mean, I never cooked before the pandemic. I'll be real with you. I can't remember, Tina, the last time I mean, I cooked for my roommates or, had a home cooked meal. And I cook a lot now. I garden. I do a lot of things that, most people, I guess, take for granted because they just do all the time. But those were not things I ever did. Now, granted, I got to travel the world and do amazing things and have incredible experiences. And I'm so grateful for that. And I can't wait to do that again. But I will say, like, finding joy in simple pleasures has been a lovely experience.
And so with all that travel, your palate has been so expand. Do you find that you sort of seek those flavors and that maybe that upped your ante as to how you cook?
Ooh, that's a good question. I will say I've always I don't know. The area that I live in is kind of an urban hipster, I would say, setting. And we have all kinds of amazing restaurants here of all kinds of different foods. So I've always been pretty international in my palate. Like I love Indian food and Thai food. And there's an Ethiopian restaurant here. And I live in Southern California. So Mexican food is like basically like a staple for us,
Right.
Burritos, getting a burrito at midnight is like, that's what we do. So I've always kind of had that. But yeah, like I wouldn't say necessarily like of the places that I travel, I'm like cooking those kind of foods because, German food, they eat a lot of pork and I don't eat pork. So I'm not necessarily cooking that. And Russian food, they do a lot of like pickled and salt fish and things like that. And I'm not really doing that either. And Brazilian food, they do a lot of like rice and beans, which I feel like is kind of what we do here, with the Mexican. It's a little bit different, but yeah, I don't know. That's one of my favorite things about traveling, though, is trying new foods and experiencing the culture in that way. It's so cool to learn about other people through food and through different cultural norms and traditions.
My selfish need to go to Asia is to eat the food.
Oh yeah, let's go. As soon as we can go, let's get a vaccine and we can go. I'm ready.
What would you say is the food you haven't experienced yet that you would like to?
Oh, that I haven't experienced. Oh, that's a good question. Well, I would love to experience some like traditional, Asian food, like Indian or Japanese food or Chinese food, because I mean, we have it here, but it's not. I'm sure I've heard American Indian food has nothing to do with what actual Indian food. I just saw your cat in the background. I thought it was mine for a second. Oh, your kitty is right there.
If I touch her, she'll beat me up. She's hateful.
Remember, there is a lot of what we talked about.
And yeah, exactly. Dependable. She's dependable. So it's my understanding that you started touring overseas before spreading your touring wings in the U.S.
I did.
At this moment, where would be your biggest market?
Oh, well, definitely. I've built a really good market here in Southern California, but I would say probably Brazil, just because I've been to Brazil so many times now. I've been there 6 times, I think, 5 or 6 times. Yeah. So really, I mean, it was interesting for me because I played so much here in Southern California, that I really, when I first got the opportunity to spread my wings and go to Brazil in 2015, that was so incredible. And then now the last 2 years, I've really started to get the ball rolling, and I did my first European tour in 2019. I set that up for myself, and I was really excited because 2020 was going to be the year to tour, the biggest year for me, and all that got shut down. So I'm very hopeful that I'll be able to do some touring in Europe and specifically in the US, because I haven't really done any US touring at all. So I'm Tina, I'm looking at you. I'm excited about that happening. So actually, I've been getting some emails from some people in Iowa and I think North Dakota the last couple days. So I'm excited that some people are getting some things rolling for maybe this late summer or fall, and hopefully I'll be able to come and do some U.S. touring soon.
Yeah, I know the Blues Caravan is going to be in
Yes.
Wheeling in August.
Oh,
That's
good.
exciting.
I'm very excited.
I think the lay of the land right now, because again, none of us know anything. We just like to talk like we do. But, I'm kind of hopeful with the vaccine being distributed that hopefully, June will start to feel like things are changing, and July they'll start to move. And then hopefully by August, I understand that the events are still going to have limited capacities, and rightfully so, until we know the status of the vaccine. But yeah, apparently everybody wants to move to October, and that's going to limit, who's available and who's not. But yeah, I think that there will be things happening this year. I just think that right now, I think what's cool is that you had mentioned that venues were that live music was finding a place.
Yes.
And I got news the other day that Rochester, New York, is getting ready to open their big venues.
Oh, that's exciting.
So I think, the goal obviously is to say, this is what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone would step up and give this, then we could all start making things happen.
And we just got clarity for the first time, I will say, in the last couple of weeks. Finally, in California, live entertainment was actually included in the kind of updated guidelines. They said now, because we had another lockdown here in Southern California, or just in California in general, in December. And so everything kind of had shut down, and we had like some outdoor dining allowed in the summer and things like that. But now, for the very first time since last March, they said live entertainment can be outdoors. Now there's some like stipulations with that, and the people have to be 12 feet from the performers. The performers are supposed to be 12 feet apart from each other. It's kind of like there's a lot of stipulations with it. It's more like solo duo acts. There's no like live bands. Big concerts aren't really allowed, and music venues aren't open. There's no indoor dining or indoor things yet. But it's something. We're like just grateful for any kind of, like you said, any kind of guidance where there is verbiage, where there's something included, so we know, okay, this is what we're allowed to do. So now we have some guidance, so we can, find a way and find direction in that.
Oh. Because without it, it's like you're a renegade breaking the rules.
Exactly. And nobody, I don't think anybody really wants to do that. There's some people that do, but like for the most part, we all want to just do the right thing. And as performers, we all just we'd love to get back to work, and we want to do it safely, obviously. And we want, our fans to feel like they can, enjoy themselves and not have to be, whatever we need to do at this point, get the vaccine, wear masks. I'm all for whatever it is that we need to do to be able to get back to some sense of normalcy.
Have you scheduled the vaccine?
No, we can't get it here yet. Okay. It's only people who are 65 and older here in California, although I think my friend just told me we're like 50th in the nation for vaccine distribution, which is kind of terrible because we're like number one for the COVID stuff.
The virus?
Yeah,
right.
It kind of doesn't really make sense. But I did just sign up. They have one of the big super sites for the vaccinations. If you volunteer there for like 8 hours, they'll give you a vaccine at the end of the day. So I just signed up to do that. So I'm hoping as soon as I can get the vaccine, I am ready. Please give it to me. I want to be able to do things. And I check in and care for my grandmother. So I'd love to be able to, like, she's getting vaccinated too. So I'd love to be able to just, be there and be able to be with her more.
You might want to look into this. Some states are putting provisions that if you are a caretaker for an elder person, that you can get the vaccine with them.
Oh, I've heard that. I will have to look into that because, yeah.
Find out where she's scheduled to go and maybe give them a quick call and ask if they do the caretakers on site.
Yeah, that's a good
And then
question.
you would just go with her and they would do both of you.
Well, I took her the first time, so hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, I would look into that if it can speed things up for you,
Yes.
So I'm going to come back to traveling abroad. I find that when I travel abroad, I'm so thankful that English is the second language that most people learn. However, there's always been those moments that I can't find anyone to help me because I can't find anyone who speaks my language. So as a girl who grew up overseas, I've always been a firm believer that if you live in a country, it's your job to learn the language.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I have discussed this subject before, and I was amazed at how you told me about how many languages you were learning. So tell me how many languages you speak, and this is just if it's a little bit, okay. And then which one is fluent for you?
Okay, so I speak English. I studied Spanish in school because living in Southern California, you kind of have to. I wanted to take French in school, but my mom was like, no, you have to take Spanish because we live right next to the border. And she was totally right. I'm glad that she made me. So I'm not fluent, but I speak quite a bit. I speak a little bit of Portuguese. I can understand a lot from the Spanish and from going there. I am studying French right now. Actually, I'm taking a French class and I speak a little bit. I can understand a little bit of German just from hearing it. And I think that's it. But one of my favorite things is when I'm traveling somewhere, I like to learn at least a couple phrases to say on stage in whatever language. And so now at this point, I've been to Brazil so much, like whatever the couple phrases that I really know really well, like, boa tarde, like I could say like a couple things really well and they just assume I'm Brazilian but then I can't have a conversation in Portuguese at all. But I can understand a lot of it. So
that's classic. And then this one you did answer, like the thing that I want folks to understand about you is how multifaceted you are, that you're trained in dance and that you're this, I think you phrased it really well. You're just this whatever you're a stage performer, I guess is the right thing to say. And that can be anything. And not many have that ability to be that, to be able to ebb and flow between this idea of what a stage performer is. And so I think it's so interesting because I think this one probably just happens just because, but I think you hands down are one of the most photogenic people I know.
Oh, you always say that. You're so sweet.
You really are. I mean, you can be in a moment and have a bad picture because it's a bad face, right? But it's still a great picture. So it's funny, as an agent, I get this a lot. Like, don't ever use that picture again. That mouth is horrible. Well, pictures are, they're personal perceptions. And so, what I think is a bad mouth is not what you might think is a bad mouth. it's easy from a female front to be like, oh, that shirt might not really hang like that, so I better not post that photo. But is modeling on your resume?
I've done some pinup modeling. There was a pinup store here in San Diego that I've modeled for a few times, and did some fashion shows for her, and yeah. So I had an acting teacher in college who said, like, learn everything you can because it'll make you that much more. Oh, sorry, I hit my camera. It'll make you that much more versatile and hireable, basically. So that was kind of my motto always, like, learn a lot of different styles of music, learn a lot of different kinds of dance. When I was in college, I learned stage makeup. When I was in college, I took stage combat, so yeah, for me, and now I'm studying graphic design because, why not? So I just always have loved to learn and love to kind of be a Renaissance woman, so to speak. So,
Show us your t-shirt.
Show us your t-shirt. It says strong female. Yes.
And that is who you are. You truly are.
I try.
Yes, ma'am. And that's what's been so interesting is, is this idea that, you've got this downtime, you're still writing songs, you're learning combat, you're learning how to do acoustic gigs, which I think you've kind of been doing with Laura Chavez for a while now.
Yeah.
And then you tell me that you're going to go back to school and do graphic artistry. So I love that, again, they all coincide with your career. But yet can all be individual careers if you wanted to choose that path.
Yeah.
So talk about what you're doing with this graphic artistry, and have you found an internship?
I haven't found an internship yet. I'm not to that point, but I'm pursuing I have a bachelor's degree already in theater, and I decided to, at least for now, pursue the associate's program in graphic design because right now I have the time and everything is online. So it's great. For me, I could take everything from home, and some of it is open-ended. So right this semester, I'm taking 7 classes, which kind of a lot. 4 graphic design classes. So I'm taking illustration, typography, digital media, which is an overview of all the different software programs. And then I'm also taking illustration, typography. Oh, I'm taking my favorite class is called book arts. So we're actually learning to make like books, like, doing all the binding and everything, but we actually end up making these towards the end of the semester. We'll make like kind of, if you've ever seen one of these like book sculpture things that's like made from, like, we're going to learn to do all that. So that's super fascinating and creative and really interesting. And then I'm also taking ballet, and I'm taking French, and I'm taking women's self-defense because, so yeah, I'm finding time. I used to have I still do. I had a hashtag for a long time that was busy little singer. That was my hashtag. And I've just always loved to be busy. I feel good when I'm working and when I feel useful. So this year was a big shift for me because I actually had to sit and like be still for a bit, which was really good. It was really good for me and a really good lesson. As I've said a lot of times, I think the last year we all had to learn how to deal with loss with resilience and grace. And I think that was like a really important lesson to learn. But I mean, I love to be busy and I love to learn. And I figure if I've got this time off, like, I mean, I could sit at home and watch Netflix all day, or I could like better myself and do things that I wanted to do all this time and didn't really make time to do it. And I'm trying to, work on piano and guitar too. I'm like trading lessons. I have my really good friend, this awesome pianist in Austin, Henry Herbert. He's a boogie woogie guy. We trade. I give him a voice lesson, and he gives me a piano lesson, a boogie woogie piano lesson. So when I find time to practice, I mean, it's just, it's hard to find time for everything, but I'm trying. So
do you have like 80 hours in your week? How many hours do you have to yourself?
that's a good question. Well, I mean, all this stuff is for myself,
That's
to
true.
myself. So
That's true.
yeah, but
And
I
it's so
also,
crazy. You remind me of myself at your age. I There was so much I was doing, and when I talk to you now about this, it's like, what happened to that girl? And I just realized that you just get older and you get more selfish with your own time, and you start to, I guess, you grow the knowledge to understand, what is working for you and what you want to put more time in.
yeah,
So like for me this year, it's been gardening.
yeah.
And it's funny because you come to my house, I feed you s'mores and let me borrow some of that future farmers of America knowledge.
I got you, girl. It's been a minute. I'm not gonna lie.
And
But
you did this, you grew up in California?
I did, yeah. My parents live in Alpine, which is kind of a rural section. It's about from my house. It's about 45 minutes, but my parents have 40 acres, and so yeah, I raised in high school. I raised cows and pigs, and I also had a hay field. That was one of my projects, and I was very active in FFA in high school, and I did 4-H when I was in middle school as well. So, one of the things I will say, my mom, I remember her saying it when I was in high school. She said, like, if you want to keep kids out of trouble, you keep them busy. And it's so true. Like, she definitely always instilled like a really good work ethic in me, but also like that, need, because like my parents, my stepfather works full time. He does IT full time, but like they have a ranch. They have a fully working ranch with animals, and my mom teaches therapeutic riding lessons. Um, and so they're just like, there's always projects on the ranch, always projects. And that's kind of what I grew up with. So maybe that's like where I get this like, oh, constant need to like be doing stuff all the time. Although like I'm fully okay with like chilling and watching Netflix at the end of the day. I don't really want to do farm work anymore.
Yeah, last year was really an eye opener. I mean, we had so much free time that the garden was, 4 times the size it should have been.
Yeah.
And some things came out, some didn't. And it was just because I was trying to do all of it at once. You name it, we planted it. And the funniest story was we thought the corn was not doing well, and Roger uprooted it out of the garden, and we were driving past this field one day, and their corn looked just like ours. So I said, honey, I think our corn was good, and I think we just needed to let it sit for a little longer.
Oh, that's funny. We tried to grow some
We threw
veggies.
away something we could have eaten.
We tried to grow some veggies, and like we had something was eating them. We planted like broccoli, and it was starting to get little sprouts, and then the next day it was all gone. So the chard has done well, but now we're doing succulents, and my roommate has succulents, and they look lovely, and they require a lot less work.
Yes, they do. That is where I started 15 years ago. I love succulents. And if that be the case, you should look into conifers, because they are just as easy, and they're
Okay.
fun because you can you can like have the concept of a bonsai, and so
Oh,
you can trim it how you want to. And if you want to keep it small, you can keep it small. If you want it to grow big, plant it in the ground. I mean, they're fun plants for that.
good to know.
So you are currently signed to Roof Records, which was how we met,
Yes.
and came to know your talents through the Roof Records Blues Caravan package. And for those who don't know the Blues Caravan, it's a grouping of 3 artists, and usually very uniquely, dynamically different. And you're what you're the package that's going to go down in history because you're known as the 2020 packet or the 2019 package. No, you were 2020.
2020, yeah.
And so now you're going to do the 2020 dates in 2021. And the other two folks in your caravan is Jeremiah Johnson and Ryan Perry. And so tell me, how is it working with Roof Records, and what was it like touring with Jeremiah and Ryan?
So it was really interesting because at the beginning we were together for about, God, I would say 6 weeks. And we had met like the year before when we flew to Germany and we shot like a promo video, and we were all together for a week. And then fast forward to like a year later, when now all of a sudden we're doing a tour together for a month and being on the road. And it was really amazing. Like, you really kind of start to become like family with these people in a way, because you are together so much. And it was so interesting because we all are so very different, not only in our music styles, but like just in our upbringings, you know? I mean, I realized, and I'm super grateful to have gotten to tour with Jeremiah, because we're so different. I mean, he grew up in St. Louis, you know, and like, I've never been to Missouri. It's very different from California, you know? And I think that's an amazing thing. And especially, God, given the last year and all the stuff we've dealt with politics and everything, I think it's really important to get to know people and really like find middle ground. You know, I don't mean with Jeremiah because we got along fine, but I mean in general, I think we've kind of forgotten how to relate to one another when we're more different, and people are very quick to just like cut people off. And I think it's really important to find those differences, you know, and celebrate them in a different way. Like, we're uniquely different, and that was the great thing about touring with both Jeremiah and Ryan, because, you know, Ryan grew up in rural Mississippi. You know, Jeremiah grew up in St. Louis. And granted, I did like have some rural lifestyle, but I'm still from Southern California. You know, it's very different from, you know, those other two places. And we all have, you know, different family dynamics. Jeremiah is engaged and has a baby. You know, Ryan is out here now. He lives in California, which is great. We want him over out here. But it's just really like a true blessing to just get to know both of them and to make music with them. And it was really cool to see, especially Ryan, because he was playing on my set and he hadn't played in 6 years. I mean, we did our gig and he hadn't picked up a guitar and been on stage in 6 years. And so to watch him in the course of a month and how much he grew, that was so incredible to get to be near and be a part of in a way. And like to get to see, you know, Jeremiah and like watching him, you know, his songs, like how he crafted them and how, you know, with his guitar, like how he would perform things. It was just really cool to kind of get to know these people. And I think because we've all been through this pandemic and stuff, and we've all been, you know, we check in with each other every once in a while, it's kind of brought us, I guess, closer in a way. So then when we do go back on the road again, we'll just be like so grateful to get to see one another and make music again. I think we're all grateful for any moment like that right now, but especially with that group of people, I think it's going to be like really great. I mean, our bass player who's done a lot of the caravans told me that like he thought this was like actually like we worked together as a group the best out of any of the blues caravans that he worked with. Just, you know, our ability to like the video and song says, let's work together. Our ability to work together and come together and make something beautiful and make music, even though we are so different. I thought that was like really cool.
I think what the three of you have that I personally saw that I think is the reason it worked so well, all three of your families instilled a fabulous regard for respect. Mm-hmm. And that is something that all three of you had across the board. And that's not something that, you know, a lot of people, that's a learned trait. It's not necessarily something that's taught in your upbringing. I guess a lot of families assume that they're teaching that, but not necessarily. And that's what I found as a mutual thing between the three of you. And having been involved with other blues caravans, you know, I'm not saying that they're bad people. I'm just saying that there was just a different element of respect for humans that all three of you have.
Oh, that's lovely.
And that was really, I mean, because you and I had kind of started talking, so I started learning about you, but Jeremiah was the one that all I knew was his music. I had never met him up to that trip. And it was a joy getting to know him. And like you said, experiencing the newness of fatherhood.
Yeah.
And being
watching
a part
him,
of that.
oh my God, seeing like his pictures and his face light up when he talked about that. I mean, that was just so beautiful to get. And you know what? I'm really grateful for him that he got to be home this last year. His like the first year of his baby's life. Cause I kept thinking about that. God, what would that be like? You know, you just had a brand new baby and now you're going to be on tour for a year. So, I mean, maybe it's a blessing for him that he got to be home a little bit.
I think there's some aspects of the pandemic that, yeah, there's certain people, and you could put Jeremiah on that list, that was a blessing and maybe a sign like, hey, you know, you've been working hard. But I can't imagine on the other side the stress he had, like, oh my gosh, I'm not working.
How am I
and
going
now
to support my family? Right. I agree. And that's and the reason why I always put it in like the positive context is just because obviously that other stuff is always there. Like it's always going to be there. But like for me personally, like I guess that's just my outlook on life is like you can focus on all the negative stuff and that's of course there. But like it's just for me that is pleasant. I'd rather like focus on all the good things and try to find gratitude because I feel like that served me well in my life is finding gratitude in whatever situation, in whatever loss and whatever experience that you go through, you have to find the lesson or the gratitude in it.
I had someone tell me when I was younger that words are self-fulfilling prophecies. And I never forgot that. And so, yeah, the words you know, what you speak is what you bring. You know, you're a product of what you throw out there. And so, yeah, I'm a half full kind of person instead of half empty.
Yeah.
Now, can't say that the pandemic hasn't brought on the other side and that I've had to process all kinds of feelings.
We all have. And give yourself a break, you know? We all have to deal with that this year.
Yep. So I think it's interesting, and I want to come back. I got to find this because I want to come back to these quotes. I love that Blues Matters Magazine calls you a future blues icon. I like that Rhythm and Blues Magazine calls you the next best thing in soul music. And I like that Elmore Magazine just called you the epitome of a rising star. So, in other words, you're noted as a jazz singer, a soul singer, and a blues singer. What do you call your style of music? And if you had the ability to put yourself in a bin at a record store, where would you put yourself?
Oh, that's good. That's a good question, especially the record store. I remember when I went to the B.B. King Museum a couple years ago, and there was a whole part of the exhibit where they talked about genre labels. And basically, it was invented for them to sell records. And basically, like Ruth Brown and Ray Charles were kind of labeled as pop music. And like blues was like kind of the music that wasn't pop, that didn't necessarily sell as well. But they talked about like that genre labels were really like kind of just invented by record labels just so they could, you know, sell music. So
and for agents to sell you.
And agents too. And I think that it's important, you know, I was actually just talking to my writing partner about this yesterday because we're writing music for the next album and we're trying to figure out, you know, like do we just write to write or do we write within like a box? And there is some of that. There is some of like, okay, this is the genre box. But for me, I'm very inspired. I mean, as you'll see, like just in the records that I have behind me, you know, Melody Gardot is a jazz singer, so is Julie London. But I have Donny Hathaway and Sam Cooke, and I have Tina Turner here, and I've got Jackie Wilson and Nina Simone and Otis Redding and B.B. King and Etta James and Little Richard and Ray Charles. I've got like a lot of my favorite artists up here. And for me, I always like to say that I sing high energy rhythm and blues that makes people dance. That I sing soulful music is what I say in quotes. Because yeah, I wouldn't call myself, I mean, some people like to say for a long time, especially in San Diego, all of the jazz musicians would call me a blues singer, and all the blues musicians would call me a jazz singer, you know? So it was like, which do I do? Because I can do both, and I do both. I have a jazz group here locally in town, but the stuff that I started to write when I started to write my own original music, I started writing kind of this soul blues stuff, you know, which is like probably my favorite. You know, kind of, yeah, where it's like rock and roll and R&B and soul kind of all meet. That's like kind of what I love. I love music that makes people dance, that makes people feel good, that's high energy. Because I'm a high energy person, and I love to yeah, make people smile and entertain people. Now, do I love like some slow blues, some Chicago blues? Yes. But is that who I am? Is that really my experience? No. And so I wouldn't feel right like writing the stuff that isn't me. I think blues especially is a genre of honesty. And I think if you're going to try, well, it should be. I mean, the real stuff, the stuff that really hits you. You know what I mean? I think that is all about honesty and being genuine. And for me, I don't want to be anything other than genuine in my music and who I am, on stage and off. And so yeah, genre is so hard because, you know, yeah, I would love to say like, and I kind of get now pitted as a blues artist, but like when you look at me versus like B.B. King, like I'm not doing Chicago, like I'm not, or Muddy Waters, like I'm not really doing that kind of blues. I'm doing, but then again, I read Etta James's biography, and she said she got labeled as a blues artist, and she was never a blues artist either. So, you know, she's always been kind of a model for me because she sang so many different styles, but it was always unapologetically her. You know, she did all this stuff with Chess Records, and it was very like torch songy, you know, jazz. And then she did like soul stuff, and she did some rock stuff and blues. So I always like to say rhythm and blues because that's like a big encompassing umbrella. That was a long answer to your question.
No, and I think while you're talking the whole time, I can't help but think Sam Cooke, you know, because
yeah, he's another one.
I mean, they considered him. I mean, I guess Motown was more, you know, the R&B side that shifted into soul, and Sam just rode the entire wave. You know, it was like he was like, as you put it, he was so honest to his core that he just kept transferring through time.
Look at Richard. Look at how long Little Richard's career was, and all the stuff he did too.
And then when they start talking about, you know, because I don't think genres really were a thing. I think they were just creating names to be different.
Yeah.
And then in the 70s or 80s was when the business people were like, oh, and so lucky Sam and lucky all those people, because if Sam came out today, you know, he would be a blues guy.
Well, yeah, where would you put Ray Charles in that? Like blues. You would say blue. See, yeah, that's hard too.
From today's standards, because you know, big band doesn't.
I would say rhythm and blues, or like R. Well, I guess you wouldn't say R&B, because now if you say R&B, that's like a different thing. Contemporary R&B is very different. Correct. I would say he's more soul, but I don't know. See, that's so hard for me. But he has jazzy chords. If you listen to Ray Charles's early stuff, it's very Nat King Cole almost. They were trying to market him like as a Nat King Cole kind of, you know, look alike, sound alike.
Yep.
So yeah, it's so hard to get, you know, and blues is, and I feel like the roots genres in general are such big umbrellas. You know, now I think it's interesting with Americana. Like now there's a lot of bands, you know, like a band that I really love, the War and Treaty, they're, an interesting dichotomy because they're kind of gospel music, but they're with Americana instrumentation, bluegrass instrumentation. They've got, like pedal steel and stuff on there. So they're Americana. That's like the new kind of blanket label. Yeah, it's just so fascinating. And what one person calls, blues or soul or jazz, another person could say something different too.
Yep. I'm so sad we have run out of time because you are a great interview. You truly are.
Thank you, Tina. It's so good to talk to you.
And so we're going to bring on a question from a viewer.
Okay.
Brittany from Arkansas would like to know, what would your biography be called if you wrote it today?
Oh my goodness, what would my biography be called?
And this is a frequent question we get.
Okay.
So I think, where is Whitney in her life right now, and what would she call that autobiography?
Oh, I would say find gratitude in everything. Something along those lines. Like I was thinking like the Monty Python quote, always look on the bright side of life. I was thinking something like that, but just something about, I would say, positivity or gratitude, because that's something that, I read this book years ago, and I have it right here. Actually, I will show you because I'm rereading it right now. This is this little book. It's called The Way to Love. It's a great book. But one of the things that he talks about, it's a very like Buddhist principle of non-attachment. And he talks about that you have everything in your power to be happy at any moment in your life. And it's just all the conditions that are put upon us by society to focus on what we don't have. And I'll be happy if I get this. I'll be happy if I do this. But really, like, you take all that away, like you can choose to be happy at any moment. And when I read that book for the first time, it changed my life. And really, like, that's something that I've tried to carry forth in my life for the last, 12 years, I would say, and in my career and in music, is just to spread joy. I think that's why I was put on this earth, is to spread joy and connect to other people. And yeah, I get to do that through music. It's a beautiful thing.
And that's a beautiful place to end this interview. It has been such a pleasure to have you. And thank you for giving me some time and to have this fun with these questions.
Thanks, Tina. It's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing where you go from here.
I'll see you. We'll see you guys all out there in the fall.
Yay! Oh, thank you, Miss Whitney. Thank you. Have a beautiful day.
Bye.
And to all of you out there, like what you saw and learned and want to keep up with Whitney, her website is www.whitneyshay.com. And if you're on Spotify, please make sure to add Whitney to your playlist. In conclusion, I'd like to thank you for spending some time with us today. If there was something you liked most about today, please share it in the comments. If you liked what you saw, please click like, and then please subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can let you know when we go live again. We'll see you next week. Have a great one.